The first anomaly emerged just after dawn. When the seismic sensor network began vibrating beneath the Earth's crust, north of the Polar Research Station, the frost-hardened tundra reflected the pale light of a waking sun. Commander Hale, the man who had led the scientific detachment for a decade, stared at the data stream in his bunker's command wing. The numbers flickered. Something deep, below the known fault lines, was shifting, and with it came bursts of quantum static, a nonsense interference that no one expected in a geological monitor. Dr. Ariel Lysander, the lead quantum systems researcher, called it ripples in the framework, though she cautioned the term was metaphor. They were witnessing what the title on the encrypted bulletin called "Parallel Universes May Be Real." The phrase felt more like a riddle than a report, and yet that day the world shifted. Hale paced the narrow corridor, his cold boots echoing in the metal hall. Beside him, Captain Annika Soren braced her forearm on the rail of the observation deck, watching the horizon where the radar dome's lights pulsed. Annika's unit, part of the Rapid Response Division, was deployed to hold the perimeter of the station. She carried the weight of her own doubt, recent losses in skirmishes of supply convoys not yet public. She had accepted this detachment only to keep moving, never stagnant, because movement meant survival. Her signature strength had always been adaptation under fire. Her weakness was impatience. The third key figure was Lieutenant Marcus Lung, an EW electronic warfare drone pilot, newly seconded into the research mission from a strike squadron. He swapped his combat seat for the squeezed cockpit of the command relay van, headphones tight, voice clipped. His goal: protect the quantum observatory from disruption and understand how this phenomenon could become an operational weapon. His inner conflict: he refused to see science as simply tactical fodder, but here those lines were blurred already. The anomaly grew worse. At 8:47 local time, the horizon shimmered. Annika spotted it first. The air bowed around the radar dome, as though the station itself were inhaling. Drone feeds showed the Earth glowing with rippling heat. Leung's consoles reported jamming incommensurable with known signatures. The static pulses were unlike any hacker or relay malfunction. They carried patterns that matched quantum oscillation models Lysander had only sketched in papers. "Something's here," Hale said, low-voiced, eyes narrowing. Weapons? Or worse, portal. The decision came down fast. Hold position, observe, but prepare to engage. The station's shield network was meant for weather anomalies, not quantum breaches, but it was all they had. Soren's squad climbed into their light-armored HTVs, hover transport vehicles, readied railgun turrets and kinetic interceptors. The supply cache was low, just 3 full reloads per turret, and if this was a new kind of threat, they had minutes, maybe seconds. When the disturbance broke through, it was cataclysmic. A wave of shimmering blue arcs erupted from the ground 200 meters from the dome. It spread like ink in water, and a tall shape emerged. An inverted mirror image of one of the station towers, its steel beams glowing with interior light. It looked like their station, but wrong, twisted. A voice crackled over comms, not human, but layered and faint. Static, then language. The breach spoke: "Surrender or be folded." Annika dropped into crouch and fired her turret's kinetic slug at the shape. The slug dissolved mid-flight, disintegrated in air. Lung pushed the EW van's counterjam arrays. Nothing worked. Lysander shouted across the room, "It's not phase-shielded yet, but maybe, if we reverse the polarity." Hale gave the command, "Try it." They rerouted power from the station's generator farm, bypassed the weather shield matrix, pushed into the unknown frequency. For 30 scant seconds the shields flickered, the dome shimmering under siege. Then the intruding shape pulled back and vanished. But the cost: one turret's generator overloaded and failed. The HTV pad melted slightly, and Soren's squad lost 1 man, Corporal Vargas, a quiet, hard-worked soldier with 2 kids at home. Hale told Soren to secure the perimeter and tend to the wounded. Soren looked away. "He's gone," she said. "I'll remember." That night the 4 of them, Hale, Lysander, Soren, Leung, met in the command wing's dim light. Papers-strewn drone footage playing on loop. The words "parallel universes" echoed hollow. Lysander's theory: the ripples were not just underlying quantum fluctuations, they were breaches, imperfect mirrors into near-identical universes. One such universe had chosen to intersect with theirs, and the intruders were probing for weakness. That explained the disintegration of the slug. Their physics were different. Our weapons lost coherence crossing the boundary. Leung shook his head. So this is war across realities, Hale exhaled. Yes, and we're not ready. Their disadvantage was glaring. They had old Earth defense architecture, limited power grids, no precedent for a reality boundary attack. The intruders had the initiative, but the team vowed they would adapt. Tomorrow they would strike back, not just reply, but take the fight to the breach's origin. Annika's voice cut through. We move at first light. The station lights dimmed, shadows stretched outside the dome, the silence of the tundra pressed in. In the night stillness, a new wave of static crackled once, then nothing. Hale watched the monitors, his heart hammering. The war had begun. Rainless, cold air gripped the station as dawn pushed back the night. Over the breakfast buzz of the mess hall, news of a second ripple came in, this time deeper near the fresh water intake for the main generator. Annika designated 2 HTVs to race out and inspect. The vehicle's hoverfield hummed as they cut across the frozen tundra, the vast emptiness, broken only by engine rumble and comm chatter. Annika sat forward in the lead craft, scanning the horizon through the reinforced viewport. Leung rode shotgun on the second, drones hovering alongside for recon. They reached the intake site, a shallow cavern of ice sheared open by energy discharge. The water intake turbines had fused. The drone images revealed fine crystalline fissures crawling across metallic surfaces like spiderwebs. Lysander's readings from the drone feed showed exotic quantum residue, probability fields oscillating where they shouldn't. The intruders had again breached reality's fabric, and worse, they were infecting their systems. Annika's squad set up a containment cordon. Leung launched a pair of micro-EW drones to map interference, but the machines froze in air mid-launch, latency gone, signals jammed. He switched to analog lines. Manually override old tech still worked. He launched them by hand. They soared and mapped the field and found a pattern. The breach input points were arranged in a triangular lattice, every node about 500 meters apart. The symmetry struck him. Not random, he said. They're optimizing the breach. Back in the command wing, Lysander overlaid the pattern on geological maps. The nodes circled the station in a crude but expanding ring. She keyed her console. If they complete 4 nodes, we'll be encircled by a full breach field. They'll fold more than our station. They'll fold the tundra. The continent, maybe the planet. Hale clenched his jaw. Tell U.S. Northern Defense Command we need resources. A diplomatic handler in the facility, Liaison Officer Mara Thorne, patched in. She had been sent by the Global Coalition to coordinate research military cooperation. Her goal, keep the station's science and defense arms aligned, despite political pressures. Her inner conflict, her loyalty to science and diplomacy, often clashed with hard military decisions. The command line beeped. Northern Defense Command prioritized conventional threats, shooters, cyber, satellites, not quantum incursions. They said budget freeze. Mara slammed the table. They're blind. This is first contact level and they treat it like an electrical fault. Soren pounded her fist. Then we'll show them. Hale nodded. We go on the offensive. They prepared a raid. 3 hover transports loaded with kinetic launchers, EW vans, portable quantum jammers crafted by Lysander's team. Soren took lead of 24 soldiers. Leung commanded the drone swarm. Lysander ran the field lab. Mara managed comms and liaison. They flew out into the wind-raked plain, shrouded by the breach's energy glow that pulsed in the sky. The first target? A node southeast of the station near a frozen river valley. They landed and set up while Leung's drones scanned. The moment the lattice node began phasing, glimmering portals flickered above the ice. From one emerged a phantom, humanoid but translucent and lit from within with neon blue veins. Direct fire did nothing. The soldiers' rounds vanished in midair. Annika shouted, "Back! Use the jammers!" Lysander activated the portable quantum disruptor. Low power, but enough to destabilize the phantom's form. It flickered, recoiled. The soldiers closed in with nets clasped with electromagnetic coils, ensnaring the phantom within a tumbling cascade of blue energy. The phantom screamed, a low keening note, and vanished. The node collapsed into silence. Victory. But the cost. 2 transports scrapped with hull damage, 1 squad member lost, Sergeant Ruiz, who'd stepped into a portal's wake, and disappeared without a trace. Soren looked at the empty space. "Gone," she said softly. Leung removed his headset. "I saw the node's core geometry. Triangular prism. 4 nodes in ring, 1 more to go." Lysander added, "If we stop 1 more, the ring will collapse around us. But if we fail, they'll complete it and fold the continent." Mara turned to Soren. "We press." "We have to." Annika steadied her face. "We move at dawn." That night, politics erupted. The global coalition demanded a rollback of military escalation. Scientists objected that the lab was being used as a base. Hale and Lysander argued a slanted chain of command. Time was the resource slipping away. The station's power grid creaked under high-load jamming tests. Generators overheated. Annika flinched as training drills lit the hangar. The moral price was visible. The tundra's animals froze near the domed station, their habitat disturbed. The team felt it. Expendable nature, expendable people. Then came the data breakthrough. Leung's microdrones retrieved fragments of the node's lattice, material no thicker than hair, but vibrating at gigahertz frequencies entangled beyond classical measurement. Lysander isolated its quantum signature. It wasn't just a portal. It was a material anchor, a route through which the alternate reality's physics bled into theirs. That meant a strategy. Instead of fighting the phantoms, collapse the anchors. Soren pumped the railguns for the next strike. Hale approved. Mara radioed the coalition. "Finish this or the breach finishes us." They had consensus, or so they thought. At 0213, they launched their second offensive, transporting eastward this time, crossing frozen ridges. The hovercraft's thermal signature lit up the tundra like wolves on the hunt. The node was in a hollow crater, already emitting erratic flare pulses. Annika's squad approached under infrared and radar blackout. Leung's drones jammed long-range scanning. Lysander carried the disruptor pods. They placed charges around the node's base and withdrew. The countdown began. At 0307, the charges detonated, and the crater collapsed. The lattice anchor burned in a flash of violet light. The phantom figures collapsed inward like folding paper and vanished. Clear victory, but then came the betrayal. One of the soldiers, Corporal Bracken, activated his personal drone, streaming footage directly to an unknown uplink. The uplink signal traced back to a rival coalition power, who saw benefits in the alternate universe technology. By the time Mara detected the leak, half the intelligence team was compromised. Political manipulation, secret agendas, sale of fragments for weaponization. They had entered a deeper game. Hale confronted Bracken. Bracken's eyes were hollow, enticed by wealth over survival. Annika shot him in the leg to incapacitate. "You made your choice," she said. Bracken spat blood. Leung watched unmoved, but the seed of duplicity had been planted. They returned to the station battered. Casualties, 5 men dead or missing, 8 transports damaged, reactor output at 80%. But the ring still stood. 1 node remained to the north. Lysander warned, "They'll finish the circuit tonight." Hale nodded. "Then so do we." They planned the final strike, mapping supply lines, logistics rails of the intruders who operated from a mobile anchor base under the ice. Soren, wounded in the leg but refusing morphine, her weakness, aversion to feeling faint, limped through the corridor. Marcus leaned against a console, wires tapped into drones and quantum sensors. Mara paced the communications room, muted, absorbing the cost. They all knew. Tomorrow they either prevent planetary collapse or they die trying. And so the night closed in. The hum of expired generators, the faint crackle of quantum static beyond the shields, the distant howl of a frozen wind, nature waiting to be folded. Hale looked at the station's dome, pulsed with energy, and whispered, "For Vargas. For Ruiz. For our world." Outside, the darkness glowed in the tundra as though the earth itself clenched its fist, and they steeled themselves for the dawn. The sun rose pale and brittle as the 4 leaders boarded a specially retrofitted HTV, the Hammerhead, packed with quantum jam pods, missile rails, drone bays, and an experimental reactive shield designed to adapt to the anchor's phase signatures. The machine throbbed with power, its turbines spinning under cold air. Annika climbed into the pilot's seat, despite the limp in her leg. Leung arranged the drone swarm in the bay behind her. Lysander strapped into the disruptor module, and Mara handled the comlink with the retreating coalition net. Hale rode shotgun, scanning the horizon. The final node was deep inside the ice fields north of station. near a collapsed glacial ridge formation known as the Teeth, a terrain of sharp ice spires that would mask thermal and radar signatures. That was to be their advantage. They flew low hoverfield on minimal height, slip-shadowed under the ridgeline. The power grid held at 60%. Hammerhead maneuvered silently. Lung's drone scanned ahead. No energy spikes yet. They landed in the hollow crater, dry and grim, cracked with fissures. The final node lunged into view, shaped like a metallic spire piercing the ice. Above it floated a shimmering dome of quantum field. Fractured light watercolors sparkled, static humming audibly in the air. The next breach point would finish the lattice. Lysander keyed her pod's interface. Annika's squad disembarked, establishing cover zones. The ground beneath trembled. Leung's drone swarm flickered. He saw phantom entity forms materializing beyond their line of sight. They crept forward. Annika cut the distance with measured steps, her railgun ready. Lysander advanced with her disruptor, trailing the cables. Suddenly the ground cracked, and a phantom burst from the fissure, swinging a crystalline weapon that fired irregular beams. Annika dived backward. Bullets vanished in air until Leung's drone localized the energy frequency and patched a feedback loop. Then rounds penetrated. The phantom staggered, dissolved. Another two emerged. The squad fell into synchronized fire. Lysander attached her pod to the anchor's base. The field dropped to 30%. The team surged. Soren's squad kicked in the reactive shield and charged the node. But the anchor fought back. The ice spires around them grounded particle discharges. Shards exploded upward. The hammerhead's hoverfield oscillated. Leung's comms cracked. Hale lunged to repair shield input lines mid-flight, sweat frozen on his brow. Lysander opened the pod, buffing power into the disruptor. The node began to tremble, flicker. Annika set the timer. The ground pitched. The lattice began collapsing in on itself. The energy field sucked inward like a whirlpool. The phantoms howled and vanished. The node imploded. A shockwave threw Annika back. Her helmet cracked, but she rolled and regained aim. Meanwhile, Leung's drones dived into the collapsing field and grabbed fragments of lattice and quantum residue. The ring was broken. As silence fell, the team gathered amidst the wreckage. The ice spires glowed amber from residual heat. Annika sat, breathing ragged, her leg bleeding. Lysander supported her. Hale walked slowly across the crater floor, tallying losses. 10 men dead, 14 wounded, shaders of the station's power grid now at 50%. But the breach ring had collapsed. The horizon no longer shimmered. Mara, pale, handled the comlink. The coalition confirmed other nodes across the continent had failed concurrent with their strike. They'd bought humanity time. Annika exhaled, weak smile. We did it. Then her comm crackled, a new reading from the station. Something small, deep beneath the core generator. It hummed at micro-quantum frequencies, a hidden backdoor anchor. They had overlooked an origin piece. Hale's face hardened. Not yet. The final stage awaited. Under the station, a vast cavern framed by incandescence from reactor coolant pylons, Lysander and Leung dashed through the tunnels toward the core generator base. Alarms cried out in the station above. Soren's medical team carried serious casualties. Mara's words floated in voiceover. Get to the reactor. They've seeded an anchor within our power plant. If it folds, the station and the continent above go with it. The halls trembled. The air hissed with coolant steam. The anchor's presence twisted the reactor's telemetry. Power surged to 90% with erratic spikes. The shield farm threatened meltdown. Lysander's portable analyzer beeped. Quantum signature matched the earlier nodes. The intruders had hidden their final anchor inside the station. Hale mobilized the station's limited internal security. 7 ex-combat technicians armed and ready. They met Annika and the rest in the engine chamber. The plan? Deliver a precision railgun shot through the coolant glass housing, hitting the anchor core from a blindside. Leung would jam external sensors to mask the shot. Lysander would prime a disruptor field to collapse the anchor. Soren would coordinate evacuation of wounded. Time 60 minutes. Constraint. Shield capacity only had 10 minutes of high-load operation left. The station's void shield was stable, only if powered below 80%. They were already creeping 90. Inside the engine deck, the hiss of reactors, the smell of coolant, the low glow of turbines rotating. Annika set up the railgun, a fixed mount borrowed from surface defense. Leung launched micro-drones to crawl along the pipework, locate the anchor's latch points. Lysander hand-wired her disruptor pod to the station's AC grid, ready to inject the field when the lens on the anchor opened. Hale monitored all feeds, noted the screen showing shield integrity falling, red bar creeping downward. Soren backed up the evac corridor. The alarms crescendoed, then the anchor activated. The glass housing around a reactor cooling vane shimmered. Energy arcs formed inside. The anchor projected a minor portal, pulling in air molecules and plasma. The reactor shuddered. Leung's voice, got it. Latch points at 12 o'clock, structural mount under coolant pipe. Annika fired the railgun. The slug punched through protective glass, punched deeper into the mount and exploded the structural brace. The anchor lurched but held. The station's lights flickered. Shields dropped to 50%. The reactor's turbines braked. Lysander ran to the control panel. Now! She entered the sequence and the disruptor field ignited. The anchor convulsed. But a phantom figure emerged from the portal and charged the squad. Soren fired but sucked into the field. Annika tackled the phantom. They tumbled across the deck. The squad fought back with slug rifles. The phantom dissipated, an escort, not the core. The anchor throbbed. Hale shouted, "Evacuate non-essential personnel." The corridor doors sealed. The station's void shield flickered. Leung's drones jammed internal comms to prevent panic. The anchor beat faster. Lysander worked the grid. Annika rejoined, breathing heavy. "We're near threshold." Hale looked at the shield gauge. 15 seconds remaining until collapse. He cut power to external hangars, diverted to internal circuits. The lights dimmed. Leung's drones secured the lug of the mount broken earlier. The anchor shrieked, white-hot arcs. Then Lysander detonated the disruptive pulse. The anchor exploded inward, imploded itself in a flash of violet and blue. The reactor casing crackled but held. The field collapsed. Silence. They looked at one another in the quiet, the banked turbines humming gently. Casualties. 14 dead, nearly 20 wounded. The station shield at 10%. Global supply lines tense, because the ripple had knocked out regional grid nodes. Hale's leg shook. "We hold it," he rasped. Annika gripped his arm. "We did." The team stood amidst the mechanical guts of the station, bruised but victorious. Outside, the world visible through observation windows was still, the tundra unbowed. But Mara's voice came through. "Sensors show the alternate universe signal dropping. The lattice is collapsing. You stop them for now," Annika exhaled. "Now we rebuild." The camera pulled outward, a fading shimmer on the horizon, a reminder the war may be postponed, not ended. Weeks later, the station's dome cast long shadows on the tundra. The world's government scrambled to establish new defense frameworks, treaties emergent in the public eye under the header of Quantum Universe Defense. Hale convened a briefing in the mess hall. Lysander presented data. The breaches had come from a near-adjacent parallel universe, one where energy scarcity forced them across realities to tap new power grids. Their motive, survival through quantum anchor harvesting, that presented risks and opportunities. Annika and Leung stood with her, markers of military science unity. Mara had negotiated the first quantum accord among nations. The station's repair planned months ahead. The cost, a trust deficit with the public, wounded soldiers, continent-scale damage to the power grid. Annika limped across the tables. She looked at Corporal O'Neill, wounded. His leg replicated her own pain. She addressed him. "We expected enemy fire. We did not anticipate existential bleed-through." The younger man nodded. She clenched her fist. "We build from that." Leung updated the drone program, ironically modifying the same strike drones for quantum field detection and interdiction rather than kinetic ops. His inner conflict resolved. Science and tactics were one. Lysander's voice cracked when she spoke of the lab's furnace of ideas. Discovery of anchor material could revolutionize energy, but weaponization would be lethal. Mora logged treaties restricting the use of quantum breach tech as a weapon. She left, fatigued, to coordinate the diplomatic web. They held a memorial ceremony at dawn. The station courtyard blanketed in frost. Hale read names: Vargas, Ruiz, Bracken, body unrecovered. Others. Annika laid down a wreath of metal and ice-shattered glass. She whispered to the wind across the tundra, "Rest now." There was no cheering, only solemnity and the world's thin air. She turned to Hale. "We're ready." Hale nodded. "We must be. Something tells me this isn't the end." Lysander added, "The anchor material remains. Others might still try." Lung's drones hovered silent overhead like silent sentinels. Months passed into a new doctrine. Military science together. Logistics chains that spanned continents and research outposts in remote zones. The station oversaw training of quantum interdiction squadrons. The first unit deployed to a mountain range in Central Asia, where scans showed dormant lattice remnants. Annika commanded them. She reviewed the map, then paused and looked at the sky, wide, clear, and deceptively calm. She thought of the tundra, of that day's battle, of the frozen wind and the shudder of reality itself. She touched her scar. Lung unveiled his new drone prototype, the Phase Hawk, capable of mapping quantum fields, detecting anchor nodes before they activated. He ran his fingers on the control panel. His weakness was perfectionism, and he'd lost sleep over flawless coding. But watching the Hawk lift off, he smiled. Lysander's lab buzzed with energy. She pointed at a microfragment dancing under microscope beams, still shimmering, still alive. She said softly, "This changes everything." Hale walked the station's deck. Shield systems repaired, but he knew vulnerability remained. They had bought time, yes, but each minute was a gift, not a guarantee. The world's gaze had shifted to the skies and subsoil alike. Quantum awareness diffuse but urgent. He made a vow. When next they stepped through that breach, humans would not be caught unprepared. His inner conflict remained, the burden of command, the knowledge that lives and worlds balanced on his orders. The station hummed around him and he exhaled, resolved. At dusk, Mara stood looking out the glass at the setting sun, turning the tundra ochre. Diplomats filed in behind her, prepping the next treaty, the public rollout of reality defense strategy. She felt the cost. Innocent lives, broken ecosystems, global nerves frayed. But she also felt the promise of something new, collaboration beyond nations, survival beyond borders. She stepped into the conference room and began to speak. The world would listen or falter. And somewhere out there, beyond human senses, the alternate universe waited, silent but watching. In the stillness of the polar night, something stirred. And it knew humans had changed.